Hey, Mr. Five here. Mayor Adams says he has no control over NYPD or law enforcement in the city. Let's get to it.
Federal government deals with immigration. That's who deals with immigration. I've said it over and over again that free speech is important, and this country advocates for that. But when it comes down to the determination of the status of who stays in the country and who doesn't stay in the country, that's the federal government. We made it clear we do not collaborate with civil enforcement, and we don't. But I am going to collaborate every day with those who commit crimes. And the crimes that are committed won't be on our streets. And ICE is a law enforcement entity. People fail to realize that. You know, ICE is a law enforcement entity. And I'm going to collaborate with law enforcement, every federal, state, and city agency in doing so. But specifically with this individual, that's not my job. The federal government determines who will be deported from this country, not the mayor of the city of New York, and not any mayor determines.
You have an opinion about it?
Listen, I got an opinion about a lot of things, but my opinion cannot govern the public safety of this city. I must make sure the city's safe, and I cannot say it enough. ICE handles who's deported and who's not deported. Even very clear, we cannot collaborate with solely deportation cases.
Recently, Mahmoud Khalil was arrested. He's a student protester that works against the war that's happening, more so the genocide that's happening in Israel. And he's been advocating and doing these sort of protests for a long time. This student is also here in this, and he has been arrested by ICE.
What? You're going to be under arrest. So turn around.
Okay,
Stop
let's
resisting.
not.
Stop resisting.
Okay, he's not resisting. He's giving me his phone, okay? He's not, I understand, he's not resisting.
Put your arm behind. Don't worry about it. You're going to have to come with us. Don't worry about it.
No one's resisting, no one's getting worked up.
You guys really don't need to be doing all of that. حبيبي كيف بدي اتصل فيك؟ Okay. Hi, Amy. Yeah, they just like handcuffed him and took him. I don't know what to do. Okay. And what should I do? I don't know. Nor. Let me ask. Can we get a name, please? Can we get your name? I understand the lawyer is asking for your name.
Over there. No, we don't give our names.
The lawyer's asking for your name. He's saying they don't give their names.
Oh yeah, that's right. We'll be taken to immigration custody at 26 Federal Plaza.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
We'll be taken to immigration custody at 26 Federal Plaza.
She said they're taking him to 26 Federal Plaza. Can you please specify what agency is taking him, please? Excuse me. They're not talking to me. I don't know. I don't know. Excuse me. The lawyer would like to speak to somebody. Oh my God, they're literally like running away from me.
Now, this arrest was facilitated by Columbia University. Also, other professors have.
Hi, I'm Catherine Franke, now a retired member of the Columbia Law faculty. And I just left the campus where there's a rally going on of outraged faculty expressing their just immense concern for our former student, Mahmoud Khalil. He was abducted by ICE at a university building over the weekend after having written to the president of the university asking for help. The university, I have to say, facilitated this abduction. having pursued disciplinary charges against him for over a year that were clearly baseless. And when we proved it to them that they were baseless, the charges were not dismissed, they put a target on his back, and they provided no protection for him over the last several days. The universities have two most sacred commitments and missions. One, to keep our students safe, and second, to educate them. We have to say that Columbia abridged those two sacred missions so abominably in this case.
He also was detained while NYPD was present, even though the mayor is saying that NYPD has nothing to do with ICE arrests, and ICE can move freely and do what they want in the city and detain a person when they need to and have a lawful warrant. Now, some of the reasons for this arrest has not been clear and has not been stated as to why he has been arrested or the aggravated aggressive removal of his visa. Now, Columbia basically cannot arrest him, right? And cannot do any type of law enforcement. So they rely on outside help if they need it, or if a crime is committed, the NYPD and law enforcement authorities can then contact the university and gain access or entrance. And so the school itself somewhat facilitated this arrest.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents arrested Mahmoud Khalil Saturday. They claim his student visa was revoked, but Khalil's attorney says he's in the country on a green card. ABC's Ike Ajachi joins us now with more on that story. So what do we know, Ike, about Khalil's arrest and the confusion over his documents?
Well, as of Sunday, we know that Khalil was essentially located in Elizabeth, New Jersey, in an ICE detention center. That's according to an ICE locator online. But his wife, who is 8 months pregnant, said that he isn't at that facility. Now, his attorney, Amy Greer, said that it's likely he's being transported to another facility in Louisiana. But the question here, again, remains as the reasoning at why he was removed. He was taken off his university residence on Columbia University and essentially was told, his attorney that is, that he was removed from that student visa. However, Khalil is in this country on a green card. And when asked, the government said that, well, essentially, they're going to revoke anything, which begs the question is the government searching for reasons to just remove Khalil? It really forces that question as to the real reason here as to why they're trying to remove him.
Now, this has come in the wake of President Trump literally removing hundreds of millions of dollars from universities. And he also made a threat, right? And I think that this what makes it more clear as into the actions that happened with Mahmoud, sort of making this Khalil case an example of what happens, and sort of Columbia University stating, we're on your side, we got you, we don't want to lose our funding. So he said that he would restrict funding, hundreds of millions of dollars from funding. He already took millions of dollars from Columbia. And so Columbia's that next response.
They're trying to reassure their students that they are following the protocol, that anybody who must come on campus must provide a judicial warrant. They released that statement over the weekend saying that Khalil essentially that there have been reports of ICE around campus. Columbia has and always will follow the law, and that they said that they're committed to complying with all legal obligations and supporting their student body and campus community. Now, it's unsure essentially what kind of warrant was issued to that university, but we do know that this came just days after President Trump said he will go after universities that harbor what he says anti-Israel activists or any kind of protest. And we also know that this decision came one day after President Trump said that he will cancel any kind of grants or government funds to Columbia University that equal to about $400 million. Yeah, we've seen Secretary of State Marco Rubio essentially release a statement overnight saying that we will be revoking the visas and or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. We saw Homeland Security spokesperson Tristan McLaughlin addressing Khalil's arrest Sunday night. So is the
Secretary of State saying Khalil is a supporter?
Well, that's essentially what the administration is pointing to. We see so many factors saying that we were going to take actions against Hamas supporters. However, obviously, his attorney, Amy Green, saying there's no such evidence that her client, Khalil, is any kind of supporters. Obviously, those protests harbored several kinds of students, but him acting as that negotiator in no way links him to any kind of Hamas supporter that may have been in that protest.
Sort of this incident, which of course sparked a lot of outrage and protest, rightfully. People are standing up for Khalil. I think that this is just an example of what happens when universities bend the knee. And they feel that that empowers them to then say, we need to make an example to show this new administration that we're on their side and that we abide with what they say. And hopefully this example could be loud enough that we don't have to sort of infringe on any more of our students' freedoms. And so the university basically sacrificing this person in some sense and giving up their lawful rights to be a student. And activism should always be supported on campus, right? Now, the falsitude of the claims is that he's a Hamas supporter, even though there is zero evidence given to show that he's a Hamas supporter or has any connection to Hamas and anything else that's involved.
He actually hasn't been charged with anything. And the Trump administration cannot seem to justify it other than comparing him and accusing him, frankly, of terrorism.
Is protesting a deportable offense?
Like I said, you're focused on protesting. I'm focused on this visa process. He went through a legal process, came into the country.
Are you saying that he lied on his application? He's a lawful permanent resident married to an American citizen.
I think if he would have declared he's a terrorist, we would have never let him in.
And what did he engage in that constitutes terrorist activity?
I mean, Michelle, have you watched it on TV? It's pretty clear.
The person speaking to Michelle Martin is an attorney. I mean, I'm surprised that he did not have answers to those basic questions, because it is important to know what is the crime here. If the crime is protest, first of all, that is protected speech, okay? So if the crime is protest, then they should say so. If it's not, they should say what the crime was, at least.
Yeah, this is very chilling, and it comes under a law that has this very strange exception that says if it's not a crime, this can be done at the direction of the Secretary of State, so Marco Rubio, who would have had to have signed off on that. And the law also talks about the fact that if it's something that is generally constitutionally protected, that this law doesn't apply unless the Secretary of State signs off. Now, look, this guy is somebody that he would be like my arch enemy of just a personality that you could put together, right? The things he said, the things he's done. But I also believe he has every right to stand up and express his belief, even if I abhor that belief. And once we start infringing on that, it's obviously very frightening.
This case has been on the media very in-depthly, as we showed the clip from. They kind of gave a lot of details, why I would like to show the clip, that he really gave a lot of information about, what was happening with the circumstances, and also the fact that there has been no reason for this arrest. There has been no justifiable reason, and that the government is basically searching for a reason to arrest a student, but create this pattern of saying, this is what's going to happen. If you do A and B, if you allow willful actions of protest, if you allow your students to voice their opinions, if you allow them to decimate that to others, as in the communication system, as in, organizing, educating other people to the problem, then those freedoms will be taken away, and you will be taken away, and we will remove you and deport you. Today is also his live hearing. So right now there's a hearing going on, which I wish I could rebroadcast, because he's going to be deported. Now, he was originally sent to New Jersey, but activists and organizers and his wife, and I think his family, has already said that he's not at that facility. And then the deportation also, the facility said that they were removing him to Louisiana. Now, this happens a lot with immigration detention because of the Patriot Act. They basically don't have to give any information about a person's custody because they're considered not a citizen. And so this becomes a sort of black hole. Immigration detention is almost, like we call it the criminalization system, where they criminalize you and then put you into the system of immigration.
Dealing with the emergency motion for Mr. Khalil's legal team to have more access to him. As you know, the Trump administration illegally detained and arrested Mr. Khalil, a lawful permanent resident of the United States and a Columbia Law University student. They whisked him away from his pregnant wife, his family, and his community in New York City, and transported him to an ICE detention center in Louisiana, initially without permitting him contact with his wife or his attorneys. Now, the Trump administration, as you said, admittedly is trying to deport Mr. Khalil because of his speech and protest in support of the human rights of Palestinians. The government admits that he has not broken any laws, and instead they're invoking this obscure immigration law that provides that the Secretary of State may designate someone for deportation if the government has reasonable ground to believe that their presence has a potentially serious adverse effect on foreign policy for the United States.
Okay.
Now, this is completely, yes.
This is what he said, and I'm going to play it.
If you tell us when you apply, hi, I'm trying to get into the United States on a student visa. I am a big supporter of Hamas, a murderous, barbaric group that kidnaps children, that rapes teenage girls, that takes hostages, that allows them to die in captivity, that returns more bodies than live hostages. If you tell us that you are in favor of a group like this, and if you tell us when you apply for your visa, and by the way, I intend to come to your country as a student, and rile up all kinds of anti-Jewish student, anti-Semitic activities. I intend to shut down your universities. If you told us all these things when you applied for a visa, we would deny your visa. I hope we would.
Right. So he's laid all that out.
You are correct, Christian. And here's the problem with what Secretary Rubio and President Trump are saying. The First Amendment protects everyone in the United States, and the government cannot single someone out for any kind of punishment, including deportation, simply because of the position that he's taken in protest and in exercising his rights under the First Amendment. Secretary Rubio is simply wrong to try to read that immigration law in a way that is inconsistent with the fundamentals of American life in the First Amendment.
Again, what is the problem here, and what is the bigger picture?
The problem is, number one, the Trump administration is trying to smear Mahmoud Khalil and with a completely baseless charge about what it is that he said. But more fundamentally, the problem with what the government is trying to do is that they are, regardless of the truth or falsity of what their charges are on the facts, the First Amendment protects Mr. Khalil's right, and everyone in the United States, all of our rights, to say what we believe, to protest whatever we like to protest. And it is completely contrary to the First Amendment and to our basic fundamentals of American life and American democracy for the government to do this. In detaining and in trying to deport Mahmoud Khalil, what the Trump administration is doing is not just attacking him and his family. They're not just attacking immigrants. They are attacking a fundamental American right. And I'd add, Christian, that this is part of a larger pattern, a very disturbing pattern of the Trump administration's actions against people he considers to be his political enemies or disfavored minorities. Whether Trump is going after transgender youth or immigrants or pursuing his policy objectives, when he starts to punish people and censor people and try to chill Americans' rights to speak out against him, he's attacking all of us and our constitutional values. And this is a very disturbing, large step toward an authoritarian government. And I think that we will start to see Americans across the ideological spectrum, from left to right, regardless of party, regardless of ideology. The Trump administration and Donald Trump are going way too far here.
And ICE is allowed into the city, and it's so contradictory that our mayor, Mayor Adams, once again contradicts himself. And so 2 weeks ago, he was in the news, right? A few weeks ago, he was in the news starting about with Trump's border czar, talking about how he's going to let ICE in and they're going to collaborate and work together, and he looks forward to working together. And then a week or two later, he's now in the news stating that he has nothing to do with ICE. They can move, and they're a law enforcement agency that moves without him knowing anything, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. He's sort of backing off of it because millions of people are protesting the fact that this is illegal and the fact that we are violating the human rights of this person to appease to a government takeover source, right? So while we're going through this sort of our government is being, scammed, and we're going through like a Haitian prince, a Nigerian prince scam for our Constitution, we also have to protect the freedoms of those who are willing to fight, and those who have always been students and advocates and activists who are on the front line, especially those who are directly impacted. And I believe that he was just really captured and detained, and all of this fuss is because he's supporting Palestinians. He's supporting Palestine, which of course America and Israel are collaborating together. And so he is being held for his political views. And that is the definition of a political prisoner. When someone is being arrested, harassed, or detained, or enforced because of their political views, and because their views do not align with America, even though we have a First Amendment right to sort of freedom of speech here. And so we have to continuously defend these liberties. If we don't stand up for this student, then we're letting down all the students, right? I live in New York. I often facilitate classes and teach at Columbia, University's New School, NYU. And the sad part is, as a faculty member, seeing the university not take a stance to defend the freedoms of youth and the voices of students, seeing the universities take a negative stance and working with law enforcement to trap this student is just horrendous, right? And so we, the people, have to make the change that we want to see happen. And defending Khalil is defending all of us. And so we have to stand by our students and allow others to be educated on this so that they can understand that the rhetoric and the propaganda that's being promoted in the media about this person being a terrorist and supporting Hamas may not be true. Like, where's the evidence from it? And we can't allow it to be presented as hearsay because it impacts this person's life. And right now, he is supposed to be transferred from one facility to the other. So detention facilities often act like correctional facilities, which they are, and they have the ability to transfer people and move them when they're deemed problematic or when basically there's too much attention in that facility. They'll do a draft or they'll move somebody to basically keep them hidden and away from their families, away from supporters, to avoid possible location protests. And detention facilities are privately owned, mostly, right? And so these facilities make money for people. So there's somebody at home from this scenario benefiting. There's a corporation, a business processing funds to shareholders because this person's detention is being paid by us in some sense, taxpayers. It's this crazy system that you criminalize a person and then push them into the immigration system, we call it the criminal immigration system. And then from there, it's on us taxpayers basically to fund it, right? The separation, the suffering of this person. And what is he doing? Peaceful protests, speaking up for people who have been murdered and slaughtered and going through a process of genocide. As a person, a black man who lives through a current genocide, because we're going through 400 years and over that of oppression for people of color, having a voice to say that is the only thing that we have, right? And so this case, which of course I will probably be adding more videos to, we need to pay close attention to, because when one of us is in chains, all of us is in chains. None of us is free, so all of us is free.
Hi, it's Catherine Franke from Columbia Law School. A hearing was held today in federal court in Lower Manhattan in the case where our student, Mahmoud Khalil, is challenging his abduction by ICE officers over the weekend and then the transfer to a private detention center in Louisiana. And I wanted to offer just a little explanation and context for what's going on in this case. There's a lot of discussion about whether what Mahmoud did, and I know him and have known him for over a year, whether what he did was illegal. or criminal. And there is no evidence of any criminal conduct, but that, I have to say, is beside the point. What they are doing is something straight out of the playbook of the Modi regime in India. For those of you who feel like we've never seen anything like this before, how could we see this coming? We have seen this kind of thing before. We should have known it was coming. And the play is, shortly after an authoritarian government comes into office, they target university actors, faculty, students, with an idea of sending a message, usually through national security and terrorism laws, that if you speak out against this government, we will prosecute you, whether it's through immigration laws, it's going to be criminal laws next with many people who are U.S. citizens, in order to decimate an opposition before it even gets started. And in the case of Mahmoud, it doesn't matter whether he engaged in criminal conduct at all, because the process is the punishment. The process is the message that we will come after you and lock you up, drag this out, and chill other people on campus, whether they are the protesters themselves or, in his case, a mediator between the university and protesters, or in my case, an advocate or advisor defending those protesters. So what we're seeing here is very similar to the ways in which the Modi government went after university professors and students right after, within a month of getting in office in 2014, using national security and terrorism laws in order to decimate an opposition that might begin in and be well articulated in universities. So make no mistake, we're seeing the exact same thing here, and we should expect for those who are U.S. citizens to be next.
Hey, Mr. Five here. So one of the things about Columbia University behind me is the campus has this huge registration process now. So in order to enter the campus, you have to go through a huge front gate security process. And a lot of us who are adjuncts or faculty or speakers or even teachers who participated in the protests, our IDs are now flagged. So we're not allowed on campus now. And even some of retired alumni professors are not going to be allowed on campus. It's only going to get worse, y'all. And Khalil, and to his family, if they come for you in the morning, they're going to come for us by night. And so this represents the attack on all of us, freedoms of speech. And this is just the beginning. Watch, there will be more. Mr. Five. Hey, good evening. Five Mualim Ak here with Incarcerated Nation Network. We're launching a unique network that will be all hosted by those directly impacted. We have a young adult perspective project that is all youth, and they will have their own platform show. And then we'll be bringing a unique talk show series, which is the first New York's reentry talk show called The Art of Return. And so all of that is going to take place on this very channel. Subscribe, hit those buttons, hit that bell so that you can stay tuned. And also, we're going to have free merchandise and also items for subscribed members. New documentaries, if you're interested in being a part of that, email us, incarceratednationnetwork@gmail.com. We make change together.